Oh, well, I mean, at least it wasn't that bad. Maybe the next game won't be all that bad. Hello, everybody. Disappointment here. Oh!
But something about Sonic 2 just feels like the perfect classic Sonic game to me. I really don't know why.
Sonic Adventure 2 will always be one of my favorite games in the franchise. Why did you make me do this? You're not delaying, so you can see all of the fans die. Think, Sonic! You could have outlasted every single platformer on the market. You could have been a revolution. What will you have after 15 years?
Sonic 06. Does it even need an introduction? Even if you're not a Sonic fan, you probably know exactly what this game is. From its absolutely disastrous development, having this game rushed just so it could arrive on Sonic's 15th birthday, causing this promising game that everybody was excited for back in 2006 to come out very low quality and being one of the first and famous examples of a disaster in the video game industry, being one of the most infamous games in the Sonic franchise and just in the general gaming industry. There is a lot I could go into in the development, but really, I'm scared of this video being an hour long, even though it will be. And chances are, you probably already know the story, and if you don't, I highly recommend you check out Mach McMuscle's What Happened on Sonic 06. I think it's a very informative video, and it gets down and dirty with all the problems during the development. All you need to know for the sake of this review is that shit was rough during development, shit's about to get rough here. But is maybe the game is the game gonna be has the game aged?
Let's just nitpick Sonic 06 for the Xbox 360.
Let's start with a story summary, and hey, wait a minute, I didn't know Final Fantasy VII Remake worked on my Xbox 360. Yeah, I know, original joke, but this cutscene does look gorgeous, but I'm sorry, this cutscene doesn't make me think of Sonic, it makes me think of Final Fantasy, and I barely have played any Final Fantasy games. So a festival called Festival of the Sun is upon the city of Soliana when the princess, the host of the festival, sees a vision of a monster destroying the city. But before she has time to process it, the festival gets interrupted by an attack from the mischievous Dr. Eggman, with Sonic whirling in, and can I just say one quick positive, because there won't be many? This is such a good intro for Sonic. Something is going down and you don't see any sign of him coming up or scoping it out. He just whooshes in and starts beating up bad guys and saves the girl with no question. No thinking, but leaves time for a quick remark and then bam, gone. One of the perfect introductions to a Sonic game right there, in my opinion. Just perfect. If this game's reputation wasn't so bad, this really would be an iconic moment. Anyway, well, after that pretty CGI cutscene, let's get into the actual in-game stuff. But, we'll get into that during the presentation segment. For now, though, Elise has been taken by Eggman, and he flies away in the Egg Fleet, and Sonic, you can chase after Sonic! Okay, now that we have the intro done, now is a good time to say I will be trying to combine all 3 episodes together, though keep in mind, I will not be doing a full-ass critique of the story, because again, I'm scared of this video being an hour long, even, and frankly, I don't give enough of a shit. So let's head back, but also for, time travel! We head to the future with a new character, Silver, who is living in a desolate city with fire and a monster named Iblis, and runs into this character named Mephiles.
Hail, Mephiles.
Did you not hear that? What? I'm not paying paying attention. I'm just sitting waiting for my turn.
Who claims to know who caused the city's destruction? Our blue boy Sonic over here. So with Silver sent to the past, and eventually getting tied up with Amy, Sonic is chasing down Eggman trying to rescue Elise. And no lie, we save her, we have a little moment about running from your problems, cool, run in with Silver, and she's captured again. Within an hour and some change, she has been captured twice. Anyway, so we find Knuckles holding a Pokedex that has a message from Eggman on it, demanding a Chaos Emerald in return for Princess Elise. Of course, he was lying.
What? No way.
So Team Sonic is sent to the future, to Silver's desolate city, and we meet up with Shadow and Rouge, who were also sent here by Mephiles during Shadow's episode. So together, Sonic and Shadow find 2 Chaos Emeralds, and after a very slow boss fight with Iblis, we head back to the present, and Sonic is an absolute dick.
Shadow and Rouge go. Did they appear someplace else?
Those two can take care of themselves.
But Shadow stayed behind, in the future to deal with Mephiles, and with the help of the returning Omega, Shadow heads back to the present, and he decides to go and track down Eggman. Meanwhile, Sonic is also chasing after Eggman and Elise, with Silver tracking Sonic back down after a brief thought about whether killing Sonic was the right idea. But Silver doesn't have much of a choice, so tries to destroy Sonic this time, while Elise is captured yet again. So Shadow deals with Silver this time, while Sonic chases after Elise. Very stupidly, I might add, falls down off the ship to get away from Eggman, but thankfully, Sonic was there to save her, making this about, I don't know, the 4th time we saved her? Actually, it's 3. But then, guess what happens? Guess what happens? She lets herself get captured again just because the Egg Fleet is all big and scary, so she turns herself in. Okay, let's head back to Shadow and Silver and see how their boss fight turned out.
Chaos control.
Oh, magnificent. So Shadow and Silver both go on a trip to the past to discover what happened 10 years ago. And see, I would worry about that, but what I am more worried about is why does this father have an ATM on his chest? Mephiles and Iblis separate and get away, so Shadow and Silver split up to seal them, with Shadow sealing Mephiles in the Scepter of Darkness, and the dad sealing Iblis into his daughter with the condition she cannot cry. I'll deal with this later. Now Silver meets up with Sonic, who is chasing down the Egg Fleet, and helps Sonic save her. Meanwhile, Shadow meets up with Rouge, and we have to find a new scepter. I was told it was at this statue, but I'm not sure how to get to it. Maybe I should ask this lovely fellow here. Let's see. Those were candle holders used for lighting a long time ago. It would be nice to light them, wouldn't it? This man right here with his stupid face just asked me to light the damn candles again. He looked me right in the eye and told me to light those damn candles. You think you've won this one? I know where you live. Anyway, where was I? So Sonic and Silver rush to the Egg Fleet, and they don't make it in time. So they travel back to when the Egg Fleet first took off, and Silver travels back to the future to stop Iblis. Later, Sonic hops aboard and saves Elise, and Silver stops Iblis, sealing Iblis in Blaze and sending her to another dimension. Shadow, meeting up with Mephiles, uses the Scepter of Darkness to seal him, but turns out it doesn't work. I'm so shocked. So Shadow spouts out a really cool line and takes his rings off and boosts through all the Mephiles clones, ending all of the story and waiting for the last story, which as usual, we'll get to at the end. Alright, so I know I rushed over this story and I skipped over a bit, but I'm sorry, I do not care in the slightest. Why should I? This story is stupid, and I'm going to give you a good amount of points as to why I think it's stupid, and believe me, this is coming from someone who actually liked the story to a degree. I knew there were problems with it, but I didn't outright dislike it, but now I do. There are so many goddamn plot holes and plot points that make literally no sense, and I'm going to go through them point by point. So first off, let's start off with something small. Why does Silver and Blaze go to the future to destroy Iblis, when we've already established that the reason why we're trying to save Elise is to not cause Crisis City, which in turn, saving her and stopping her death, which will change Silver's future. In fact, Sonic outright says it before they go. So all Silver and Blaze have to do is just sit and wait.
I'll make sure to change Elise's fate. And that in turn
should change your future too.
There's no point in any of this, and especially making Blaze's sacrifice completely pointless because of the price she is paying doesn't need to be paid. Sure, I got emotional at the death and everything, but then I had to stop and think what Blaze was actually giving up, and it's literally nothing, because Sonic is going to prevent Crisis City. And I know what a lot of you are saying right now. Well, two things at least. First, they did for story purposes and Silver's final boss. Yeah, I get it, but why not just take down Iblis and forget the whole ceiling thing? Because Iblis won't exist soon. If they wanted to take down Iblis just so the story felt complete, then that would be fine. Why throw Blaze's sacrifice into this? And the other thing y'all are saying, that was a small critique? Oh, believe me, compared to everything else I'm about to say, this is insignificant. Such as, how does Mephiles know Shadow was going to steal him in the scepter? Did it happen in the past timeline before Shadow goes back in time to the accident? Or what I think they are implying, which is that Mephiles is hailing from that past and getting revenge on Shadow when Shadow hasn't done it yet in this timeline, therefore making those events not occur yet. So Mephiles would not know about it, and if he did, why the hell is he mad at Shadow if, again, he hasn't done it yet? You should be mad at the one who actually shielded you, which brings me to my next question. Who originally sealed Mephiles and Iblis? Because if they are implying that Shadow and Silver went back in time to the event and sealed them 10 years ago, like we ourselves are seeing in the game, and that's where the story takes place, then that would imply that if they didn't do that, Mephiles and Iblis would have gotten away, making the world possibly under control of them, meaning this entire game does not happen. And or, if Mephiles and Iblis did get away, but got resealed by, I don't know, Elise's dad, then Iblis and Mephiles would have most likely escaped the base they are holding them in, judging by the shape of the soldiers after the explosion. So the future that Shadow and Silver changed by sealing Mephiles and Iblis earlier while they are still in the base would make a drastically different future than what we see in the game post Shadow and Silver's time travel. Not to mention, another reason why I think they are implying that the game is taking place post Shadow and Silver's time travel is because of the Chaos Emerald Elise has at the beginning of the story. Because during that time travel, Silver gives that very same emerald to Elise as a lucky charm because he feels bad about what Elise has to go through, which I will get into in a second. So what I think the game is trying to imply is that Elise has it because of Silver. Therefore, Shadow is the one that sealed Mephiles because he went back in time with Silver. These two timelines should not mix at all. Oh, but that's not all I have to whine about, because I counted huge time paradoxes besides this, and by my calculations, the universe should have collapsed. Let's start with this one for starters. So after Shadow stays behind in the future to take care of Mephiles, Rouge finds Omega and gives him a Chaos Emerald from the future and a reactivation program so he can assist Shadow, meaning that the Omega that saves Shadow is future Omega. Okay, so A, holding a Chaos Emerald all the way into the future would most likely be impossible and is a huge paradox in and of itself, and B, future Omega comes back with Shadow to the present, meaning there are two Omegas in the same timeline right now. But see, that's nothing, because compared to what they do next is destructive. So when Shadow and Sonic head back to the present after getting two Chaos Emeralds, they bring the Chaos Emeralds back with them that they got from the future, meaning that there are 9 Chaos Emeralds. The timeline is only meant to handle 7. With that amount of energy, the universe would have most likely collapsed. Dead. But that one, maybe they could survive and get away with that. But what Silver does is devastating. When Shadow and Silver travel back to the past to the Solaris project, Silver leaves a Chaos Emerald with Elise in the past 10 years ago. That means that the world had 8 Chaos Emeralds in the span of 10 years. If someone got a hold of Elise's Chaos Emerald, which, let's face it, they most likely would have, can you imagine the amount of paradoxes that can be made with this? Like if Sonic turned super during that time for any reason with the 8 Chaos Emeralds during that 10-year period, that in itself is a time paradox. Or hell, what about the villains? If Eggman found out about this, who knows what he would have done? Not to mention the scientists. Christ, literally anything could happen with more than 7 Chaos Emeralds in one timeline. Because if 7 Chaos Emeralds are powerful enough, who knows what 8 could do? But then we have by far the stupidest oversight in any story, and that has nothing to do with time travel, nothing to do with the pointless sacrifices, but the act of the father sealing Iblis within Elise with the condition that Elise must never cry or else Iblis will be released. How the fuck Do you expect me to believe that this girl lasted her entire life without crying, with her dad dead and the stress of ruling a kingdom? Oh, and nothing big or anything, but literally holding the destruction of humanity in her? Look, I don't care who you are, male or female, strong or weak. You cry. We all do. And if you say you don't, you do. Everyone does. So this game trying to convince me that a little girl through her entire life did not cry once in her entire life? What, did the dad dying and the stress of the kingdom not count? Did Iblis let it slide? He was just like, okay, your dad dying and the stress? Okay, that's fine. I'll let you slide on this one. But anything else? It's Fire City, baby! Oh, and you, Mephiles. I have something to say about your character later, but what I will say is, why are you sending Silver to destroy Sonic to make Elise cry when you can do it yourself, no problem? You're more powerful than Silver is. You can handle a blue hedgehog, and with you being a villain, you must obviously know that. Why waste your time manipulating Silver? Just get it done yourself, you lazy prick. Oh, that was a lot to take in. But now let's get into another problem I have with the story, but it's not a plot hole, it's just fucking stupid. The relationship between Sonic and Elise. I don't feel right. This feels like bestiality. It's weird. I don't like it. Moving on. Oh, okay, I had to go sit down for a minute. Okay, alright, so let's calm down for just a minute. Let's discuss characterization, and I think this is possibly where the most amount of effort and finished effort at that went. Because I think Sonic and Shadow are written the best here than ever before. Minus the relationship between Sonic and Elise, Sonic has really grown as a character, and I feel that's reflected here. He's still cool and laid back, but he's also damn inspiring with the amount of quotes this game has. But the character who got the most development was Shadow. Continuing after Shadow the Hedgehog, he has completely thrown out Maria and has moved on, and I think he's grown because of it. Sure, you could argue that he's more of a one-note character now, but personally, I don't think so. He has a fresh new start and completely different. And you know, people have said in the past that Shadow should have died in Sonic Adventure 2, but in my opinion, he did. Because this Shadow is completely different than the one that was in Sonic Adventure 2, and honestly, I believe that's more powerful than him staying dead. So honestly, I think he's great because of it. I think Shadow the Hedgehog just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth about the character, but I still like him even though I hated the game and its writing that was trying way too hard. But let's get into the new characters, Elise and Silver. One I want to defend, and one I want to add fuel to the fire. I don't care who you are, I like Silver. Silver is probably the most misunderstood Sonic character in the entire franchise, because when this game came out, and even today, people really hate how Silver was so gullible to believe in Mephiles, and I'm sorry, I think everyone is wrong about that, and if you disagree, I have to ask you to imagine yourself in his position. Really think about where he is. He has been living in a desolate city, constantly fighting Iblis over and over and over again, and it's at this critical moment where Mephiles uses his manipulation. All Silver wants is to destroy Iblis. He doesn't care anymore. He wants his city saved. He's tired, so he's looking for that hope, and Mephiles manipulated him at the right place and time to give him a completely plausible response. Silver is a naive kid, and I think we can all agree on that, but he's not fucking stupid. He's just naive and just doesn't see the red flags easily when he's like this. Completely devoid of hope and filled up with frustration and looking for that last spark. And according to Mephiles, who has successfully manipulated him, he found it. Now, I defend Silver, but I wish I could defend Elise, but I can't. There's nothing about her I like. Nothing. She is genuinely a really unlikable character. She is an emotionless rock that has no bearings on anything at all and is just there to be damsel in distress. And before you say about her stupid backstory, I don't care. Her backstory is stupid anyways, therefore I have no connection. She gets caught 4 times through the entire game, and the campaign took me 4 hours to complete. That's 1 time per hour. And one of those times she turns herself in with barely any hesitation, only because Eggman was threatening her with his ice cream Egg Fleet. Lady, you have Iblis inside you. Yeah, you may be rescuing your town, but you're giving Eggman the means to destroy the whole world. Ugh. You know, I'm going to do this. I went on your mom's Facebook to ask a certain Sonic the Hedgehog community about positive things about Elise, and let's just see what they said. Alright, so how many responses did I get? Oh, jeez, 15. Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, yeah, she's the best damsel in distress ever. Oh you know what? I agree. I like her in every aspect. Every aspect, they say. The one part where she throws herself off Eggman's machine knowing Sonic will catch her was cool, to be honest. No, she didn't.
Sonic!
Chris Thorndike and Elise Soliana are the only true pairing of the Sonic series. Oh yeah, annoying kid, annoying girl. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh wait, also, annoying adult girl, annoying kid. So, her design is really cool. Is it? That whole thing about not crying is also cool. Again, is it? And like said above the part where she throws herself off Eggman's machine because she knew Sonic would catch her was honestly like one of the best moments in 06. Again, she didn't know! Really, had 06 not include that kiss, I think people would have liked Elise a lot more because I actually think she's a great character with a lot of untapped potential. Well, the fact that I haven't brought up the kiss yet because that's in the last story and I still hate her, yeah, I don't think so. Her design. Again. What? No. She's cute. Again. What? She's got a nice voice. No?
I'm so happy.
Pretty brave for young Sovereign that has to endure being kidnapped by a man with a robot army while a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog tries to rescue her. I have to debate with you on that, I'm sorry. She makes Peach being kidnapped not as annoying. I mean, yeah, I'll give you that. Good design except for her odd colored legging. Again, what? What? She was a fun character. Fun? She was fun? The only negative was she was always kidnapped. The only negative, they say. Her jumping off the ship was neat. Again, she didn't know! All in-game cutscenes looked rough. No kidding. Sonic 06 is actually great. Cute design. Again, what do you see? Honestly, she came across as a lonely girl with a crush on the big hero that saved her. For like 10 seconds? Not that different to Amy. If they changed her species from human to Moby and Anthro, I think a lot of criticism directed towards her wouldn't have happened. Again, I mean, yes, you're sort of right. I mean, it would have helped with the whole, you know, like, her being, like, with Sonic and everything. It would have made it a little less, like, awkward and whatever, but that doesn't change the fact that the character is just a complete waste of brick. But now, let's discuss the new villain, Mephiles. Mephiles is a joke. He's a fucking fanfiction come to life. Like, seriously, Mephiles the Dark, a being resurrected through the shadow of Shadow? Oh my god, give me a break. Dan Green does a good performance, which we'll get into later, but a good performance doesn't help with his shit character. All I could think of while looking at him was just fanfiction, fanfiction, fanfiction. Like, seriously, what's next? A character named Cernak the Light? I don't fucking know. I swear, this game is getting worse and worse, and we haven't even got to the gameplay yet!
How long is this gonna go on?
Unfortunately, I wish the gameplay was next, but first we gotta talk about the presentation. Let's start off with the CGI cutscenes. They're effing great. Except when they're not. What the fuck happened here? Okay, let me explain this as best I can. For some reason, there are CGI cutscenes in this game, but also CGI real-time graphics mishmashed together. Now, in some areas, this makes sense, like when Shadow seals Mephiles because it has a real-time cutscene with a CGI effect over it. That makes sense. But in cases like the cutscene where Sonic and Elise run through the valley, it's the in-game graphics with CGI lighting and grass, which makes everything just clash together, and it looks awful. And there was one cutscene during Sonic's story which for some reason is pre-rendered even though it's not CGI, and for an even other reason looks like shit. There's barely no shading on any of the characters, so it's just this colorless mesh. But now let's talk about the in-game graphics. But before we do that, we need to talk about the designs for Sonic & Co. What the hell did they do to you? Now, to be fair, I think some of the designs look good in poses or even in the CGI cutscenes. But in-game and in motion, oh god, they look bad! Some characters don't look as bad as others, but I can't point at one and say it's a good design. The only two I can say that for are Shadow and Rouge. Rouge because she has gone pretty much unchanged, and Shadow because I don't know. But characters like Tails, they just washed out all of the personality out of them. God, man. Oh, but Eggman is just bad. Full stop. He has these weird cylinders on his chest that someone on YouTube is most likely screamed about. Not me, of course. And Eggman's bald. Now, I know you're gonna say, he's always been bald. And I know, but he had goggles on his head that kind of like hid it a little bit and didn't make him look as bald. But here in Sonic 06, I think I can see the moon reflecting off that thing. And another issue, Eggman has eyes that you can see through his glasses. I don't like it. Please, turn it off. Just turn it off. Forget Mephiles. This is the darkness that haunts your nightmares. But I think the real reason why they look so bad is because of the animation. Now, I don't think this game is as bad as something like Sonic Adventure, but in terms of actually having these cutscenes emote, every other game does better than this. For Christ's sake, even Sonic Adventure 2 had better emotions for their characters. Because while the animation, body movement, everything like that is okay, the characters have this blank expression about 90% of the time, especially Tails. His childlike personality just disappeared after cutscene 2. After that, all emotion just whittled away, just like my hope for this game. Now see, I think Shadow works fine because it's Shadow, so him having blank expressions are pretty fine, but everything else is just nothing. Okay, let's circle back around to the endgame graphics. How do they look? Fucking horrible, thanks for asking. Sonic just clashes with the real-life art style. It just doesn't work. And see, the CGI cutscenes look good because I think they're going for a real-life cartoon hybrid, like it should be. But here in Xbox 360 land, I'm miserable. The citizens of Soliana look extremely unfinished. And look at one of Elise's officials here on the balcony. Look at her, she looks fucking horrible. I don't know what else to say, man. This presentation looks so fucking belch-worthy. And you know, there is something I could talk about. I'm kind of worried about time. I don't think I should. Fuck it. This box art sucks. Who approved of this box art? This looks like temporary box art. You know the ones they put up in stores for pre-orders until the box art is completely finalized. It's just Sonic running through Kingdom Valley with some cheap blur on it, and the Sonic render isn't even centered with the logo. What about the back? Maybe the back is better. Christ, that's just a bad Photoshop. Also, the snapshots on the back are pissing me off. Sonic and Silver's are in Crisis City and Dusty Desert, which look pretty much the same in terms of overall color, so the two don't contrast well, and then Shadow's in Radical Train, which looks nothing like the other two pictures, again making all these pictures not contrast well in the slightest. And Sonic Snapshot has robots in it when there are no robots to fight in Crisis City, just Iblis enemies. Ugh. Play as Sonic, Shadow, or no Silver. This time speed won't be enough.
Damn it.
Over 10 action-packed stages. Well, that's debatable whether or not you include the end of the world in the final story, which is just a reprise of all the previous levels, so jury's out on that one.
Battle 10 formidable bosses.
There's only 9? Oh, just so close. Okay, back to Gameland. Sorry, I had to rant about that. Let's move on. Okay, presentation done. What's next? Voice acting? So the 4Kids cast returned from Shadow the Hedgehog, and their performance? It's a mixed bag. You do have some perfectly fine lines here and there, but most of the time it just depends on what's on the script, because there are times during the story where there's this forced lazy exposition, and see, that in itself is bad, but the voice actors make it hilarious, because their line delivery is so flat and rushed, it's goddamn amazing.
What is this place?
It seems we've been teleported to another location.
Here's a better example that had me barrel laugh on the call when I first heard it. Tails is reading a shocking revelation that Elise is going to die on Eggman's fleet. Not only will Elise die, but the destruction of all humanity will be released, causing what they see before them, the destruction of Soliana City. And now, Sonic will give his heartfelt, somber, worrisome response.
If we don't return in time, Elise will die on board Eggman's battleship.
Shadow is pretty consistent. Rouge sounds like she's 40, but Omega? What do they do to not only your character, but your voice? Omega was amazing in Sonic Heroes, and even Shadow the Hedgehog. He was just done with everyone's shit and wanted to annihilate everything that pissed him off. It was funny, but also made him one of the best subtle characters in the Sonic series up until this point.
Time to pay, Eggman. Worthless consumer models. What a waste of energy. You will be completely eliminated. New target acquisition. Now I shall destroy you all.
Believe me, it's not all gone.
But what you did to Shadow in the future, that was your...
But most of it honestly is, and the new voice acting really takes a lot of that away. He sounds way more like a robot, and I know that sounds stupid, but hear me out. In Sonic Heroes, there was this fine line between Robot Annihilator and regular robot to make him sound legitimately threatening, and where you can take him seriously. But here, the new voice actor sounds way too robotic and slowly to where you just can't anymore. Mentioned earlier, I do think Dan Green does a great performance as Mephiles. He does sound exactly as you would expect him to, a dark supernatural being with an act for manipulating. Still doesn't make him a good character though. Before we talk about Silver, Let me talk about Blaze, because Blaze is probably the best voice actor in this game because she doesn't give a shit about anything. Ever. Like, you get one victory animation for her in the entire game, and if you get an S rank, which I did because I'm amazing, she will say,
Can't complain.
for an S rank. I feel bad if Silver ever has to date her, because I did once. I took her to this fine dine restaurant that was like $1K for the whole meal. There were romantic candles, gourmet food, and jazz, making us both feel warm inside. And then I looked at her after the meal, longingly asking the question, Blaze, did you enjoy the date? And with her mouth wiped and her eyes glistening, she looked at me and she said,
Can't complain.
Alright, but now we gotta talk about Silver. I defend Silver's character, but I do not defend his voice acting. But to be fair, a handful of times his voice actor does a great job. There's lines like this.
I can't. I wouldn't know what to do without you.
This.
This looks so beautiful.
What? You mean this desert?
Everything is so great here, isn't it? The sky is gorgeous and everyone's happy.
But then you have lines like this.
I have the power to travel through time.
No way!
This.
This person to blame.
I see it!
And this. Oh boy, so let's review so far. The story is shit and confusing. The presentation looks bad from an art style standpoint. Not even the CGI cutscenes are perfect 100% of the time. The voice acting is hit or miss. I couldn't even find much worth on the box, so I guess that means it's all up to the gameplay. The gameplay is all we have to rest on. So we actually have a lot of characters to play as this time around. Not only do we get to play as Sonic, Shadow, and Silver, but we have plenty of other characters as well. Tails, Knuckles, Rouge, Omega, Amy, and Blaze. I find it really weird how they didn't advertise that you could play as all these characters. It does in the manual, which I don't have, but just a weird thing to leave out. But anyway, I guess let's start with those side characters to start off with, then we will get into the main ones. Tails can fly as always, and he has this pitiful attack where you throw ring boxes that you can't even collect and makes things really bad in the combat department. And what I am about to say goes for every character in the game. You cannot jump on enemies in a Sonic game. Now, to be fair, I didn't use jumping on enemies very much in Sonic Adventure 1, 2, and Heroes. But when you have a character like Tails who doesn't have a good attack, well, that makes things very annoying, doesn't it? Not to mention his flying is very slippery and sensitive to where you have to fly in circles to get your bearings back, which is very disorienting. Knuckles can glide and climb up walls just like in the adventure games, though his glide is pathetic because he drops like a fucking rock. And his melee attacks? Don't. They're pretty much useless because the attacks are so stiff that it's just not worth it. Rouge is basically a clone of Knuckles, but she can throw bombs, though it's in an arc, which is pretty annoying, but she does have a better glide, which makes up for it. But both her and Knuckles have this problem, and I initially wasn't going to bring this up until the glitches part, but when they climb up walls, most of the time they do not want to jump off. They will stay stuck and hop a little while you're trying to get... Omega is really fast for some reason, but he can shoot, though there's no visual when you're using the attack, so sometimes you don't know whether you are actually shooting them or not, and it also just leaves you so unsatisfied. They could have at least had the laser from Adventure 2 to lock onto a bunch of enemies to make the visual a little bit better. Also, he has the hover ability that Tails and Gamma had in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, but get into more detail about that later. Then we have Blaze, who is basically Sonic, but this weird clunky homing attack. It's not bad, just awkward to use sometimes, and she also has this tornado attack, which is slightly better. Okay, well, I think that's it. I don't think there's any more side characters. Amy is the worst fucking character in this entire game. I can go ahead and say it. Amy is pathetic, and it was made by the devil to punish anyone who bought this game. She is the slowest character. She has pathetic range. I mean, you gotta get right up in an enemy's face to do any type of damage. Wait, she can turn invisible, though, which is literally just turning the model off. Like, you know, most games that have invisible modes have like a transparency effect, but here in Sonic 06, they literally just turn the model off. Alright, now that we are done with the side characters, it's time to get into the main characters, the ones that are actually advertised on the box. Sonic, Shadow, and Silver. So let's start with Shadow then. Shadow is pretty much a slightly slower Sonic, and I gotta be honest, I know people really hated Shadow's controls in Shadow the Hedgehog, especially critics, but damn it, I wish some of it carried over, because in this game he just feels so stiff and heavy by comparison. I don't feel like I'm on roller skates anymore, I just feel like I'm running, so when I see this animation and now it controls, it feels so heavy. I think Sonic Adventure 2 did his controls better justice, and he was just a clone of Sonic. He also has Chaos powers, which do not much. Okay, first off, I never really figured out how to activate his other powers. Like, apparently you can do a Chaos Blast in the sword, but the game doesn't tell you how to do it, and I never figured it out. What you can do, though, is use his Chaos Spear move, which stuns enemies, which I really only used on the bigger enemies. On smaller enemies, the homing attack worked just fine. Or, I'm sorry, the attack works just fine. Shadow can also use vehicles like Shadow the Hedgehog, and I'm happy to report they do work better here than they did there. And there's actually a purpose for them, though that does come at a catch. Since there are no guns in this game, there are weapons attached to the vehicles, like missiles and submachine guns, and they are also used to get past areas with water or quicksand. I would be mad if they didn't control well or weren't fun to use, but thankfully, they are both of those things. Now the only issue, what is Gun making their militarized dune buggies out of? Because the vehicles have a health bar, and if it goes down, it explodes. Now see, that's a fine system, but not when you're using a dune buggy and you land on all four wheels all intact, but your buggy takes damage anyway. There's one part in White Acropolis where you have to ramp off and land on a higher platform, and you are required to do so. There is no other way, and when you do it, you take damage for ramping off a mandatory ramp. Oy. But it's not just fall damage that gets you, no. If you hit the smallest pebble with your dune buggy, you take damage, causing your vehicle to blow up very abruptly and out of nowhere, because while you're trying to use the vehicle and have a bit of fun, you're unknowingly taking damage. So that causes me in Crisis City here to go through the stages normal, jump off this ramp, land on the ground perfectly fine, then it blows up out of nowhere and I'm just confused. But the worst enemy of the dune buggy, the worst enemy possible that will halt and destroy your progress because you underestimate them every time. They are big in numbers, yet people ignore them. Yet they are an unstoppable force that need to be stopped. The traffic cone! Oh, but did I say all of them control well and are fun? Yeah, take that from me and punch me in the face, because the motorcycle is dog shit. The handling is garbage. What you're seeing right now is me trying to turn a little bit to the right and or left, but I've got to awkwardly just zigzag back to where I want. And even this one time where I try to go a little to the left, but I just go clean off the stage. I swear, that was not my fault. I was not pushing the analog stick that much. Also, if any part of your motorcycle happens to touch part of the train, well, I hope you
Like trains.
What about Silver? Well, Silver has psychokinesis powers that you can use during gameplay, and it's pretty cool when it wants to be. But let's start with base control. He is slower than refrigerated maple syrup. Not as slow as Amy, let's make that clear, but pretty damn slow and annoying. Now, personally, I don't hate it. Sure, it's not objectively great, but I personally am just mad about Silver's gameplay, and granted, there is some cool things he can do with this psychokinesis, but that's if physics want to cooperate, which we'll get into later. Yes, there's more to this video. Also, if you want to use your psyche on an enemy, you have to whack them first to stun them, and just like Amy's attack, it has no range whatsoever. But your psyche also depends whether you could control it or not, because you have to just awkwardly steer the object Silver is holding into where you want it to be, but most of the time it doesn't. He can hover in midair, though just straight ahead. But here's a bit of an exploit for you. Spam the A button while you're hovering and you can get a lot more airtime, and Silver will even do a dance. Alright, so all of the gameplay styles have had their ups and painful downs, and none of them have remained consistently good. So all we have left is our blue boy Sonic over here. Maybe they put so much time into him more than the other characters, so he will play the best, right? Okay, let's take it from the top, and I want to start with basic controls, which goes for every single character, not just Sonic, so we're not pegging the blue boy just yet. Every character has the same basic controls, just more slippery or more slow. So how is the control? Well, great for most characters besides Sonic. Sonic is stiff and slippery at the same time, causing you to really lose control sometimes, and it just gets disorienting. Look at the footage right here. I guarantee the run controls exactly as it looks. What about the jump? It's floaty as heck. Now for some characters this works fine, like Knuckles, Rouge, and Silver and Tails, but the other characters who don't have flying abilities, like the one on the front of the box, the jump is slow, floaty, and no. This is probably the worst jump for a Sonic game we have so far, and that's kinda not a good thing when this is supposed to be a platformer. Now this is only an issue with Sonic and Shadow, because they are the only ones who can do the Lightspeed Dash, but it works only when it wants to. Now in fairness, that was a problem in the adventure games, and especially Heroes, but there I felt I could at least figure out how it works and get it working. But here, no, you have to be pixel straight in order to get it right, and I think I eventually did, but when I first played the game, it was not pretty. Alright, now let's just get into the issues with Sonic and nobody else. The homing attack is clunky. There's this really weird cooldown for it, which takes way longer than I think it needs to, and when you're fighting a bigger enemy, it can take what feels like forever to take them down. Though thankfully, the bounce bracelet makes a return in this game, where you can buy from the shop, and you can use it to damage enemies, and though it's a bit stiff, it does work well, and it is kind of fun to use, so I'll let this one slide, just this once. What can't slide though, are the Mach speed sections. I am fairly convinced that some of these were not play tested in the slightest. First of all, I gotta bring up the funny animation that happens when you hit a wall and take damage. That's not even a glitch, that's just... wow. But secondly, these Mach speed sections can be really bad and difficult, and the bullshit kind of difficult, by the way. In Wave Ocean, if you don't get on this loop properly, Sonic will miss the ramp and fall off the loop entirely. In Crisis City, if you happen to hold forward, you head straight for the hole in the wall and die. And in Radical Train and Kingdom Valley, you'll really hate the stiff jump. But see, okay, that's something new that they were doing. Maybe they just didn't know how to implement it. That's a doubt I will give it. So did they mess up something older that they did perfectly fine in the adventure games? Both adventure games had snowboarding segments, and they both handled great and were fun to play. In fact, one of my favorite stages in SA2's multiplayer mode is the snowboarding segment. So why here, how here, did they mess up the handling so goddamn much? I don't even know how to explain what's wrong with this. Just look at the footage. It speaks for itself. Okay, I think that's everything for basic gameplay and controls. Now it's time to get into the vile, disgusting part of this game. Let's start with the physics. There are no physics. None. None at all. Stand on the side of a light, stand on the side of boxes, walk sideways on a sidewalk, use Silver's powers to stand on a ball and fly yourself away. There is no physics programming at all. I am fairly convinced. Alright, where do I go next? Framedrops. See, the game does run at 60 FPS on the Xbox 360, which is pretty cool. And it is stable, except when it's not. This is unedited footage here. This is what happens when you encounter a lot of enemies on screen, and even defeating some of those enemies and getting rewarded. The frame rate tanks badly. Now in fairness, sometimes, obviously unintentionally, the frame rate does cause the game to go into slow motion, and sometimes the frame rate will dip at just the right time to where it actually looks kind of cool. Now this is not an objective accolade, don't misunderstand me. It's just something good out of a bad situation, but even then, it is too far between to give that a pass. Alright, mission time. While running in the hub world of Soliana City or wherever, you'll find people with a blue icon saying they are in need of some help. This is a mission, and it can range from a lot of things. Some are a person's science experiment, some are pointless mathematics, and some are putting apples into barrels when you can't steer the apples into the goddamn. And then a few you just feel like you're playing Superman 64, and I don't want to mention that game because someone's going to tell me to play anyways. But besides the apple mission, none of these missions are really that bad or broken, at least from what I played. They are just dull, uninteresting Sonic Man. But there's only one thing that makes them annoying: the loading screens. Yep, it's that time. The infamous loading screen that plagues this game and making all of these missions, no matter which, tedious, dragging nightmares. For you see, I don't know why, but for me, I personally am okay with their length when going from mission to mission. Could it be because I am more patient? I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not the length of them that bothers me, it's the amount of them. Let's take this mandatory mission for example. This is one you have to do because you need to get rings to buy the light dash upgrade from the store. So you need to do this mission and try out this guy's shoes. So I talk to him, start the mission, a loading screen starts. It ends and the man tells me what to do, then there's another load screen. I finish the mission and there's another load screen. He tells me thank you, then the result screen happens, and then another load screen, and then done. And it gets even worse depending on the mission. Take the science one. He tells you to count the boxes. You do that. A loading screen happens while you are desperately trying to remember the damn number and then pick it after it's done. Repeat 6 times. Christ almighty. Alright, break time. Let's discuss level design. Finally, a kind of positive, but also the most depressing, because the level design might be the best thing about this game, and it sucks it was wasted on this game in particular, because Sonic 06 might host some of my favorite levels in Sonic history, not in terms of gameplay, but just the exploration aspect and the amount of pathways you can explore. Not all of them are winners, but most of them are. Most of Sonic's levels are true evolutions of the adventure formula, with tons of pathways and hidden goodies for thinking outside the box, and takes full advantage of Sonic's moveset. So it just sucks when you're enjoying a level, but then 06 comes in to ruin everything. For all the other characters besides Sonic, they're okay, except that ball level with Silver. Seriously, who approved that? I'm not going to take the time to explain that level because you most likely already know about it, so I'm not even going to waste my breath. But the rest are okay, just okay. Before we get into the last big topic, let's discuss cut content, because this game is already bad enough. Let's discuss what it could have been, because why not, alright? I'm already depressed, let's have some more! There was supposed to be a day and night cycle, and the game suffered for not having it, because there are many moments in this game where it's a time of day in one cutscene, and then a completely different time of day in the very next cutscene. Some examples, the very first cutscene in fact. Eggman takes Elise at what looks to be the dead of night. Then when you load into the hub world, it's suddenly morning. You want another? Silver questions about killing Sonic at day, goes to White Acropolis, then it's nighttime. It's a real shame this didn't get implemented, because I think it would have really helped in the replay value. Could you imagine playing Kingdom Valley once in the main game, then replaying the game again and it's at sunset or even between sunset and night? It would have been great. What about another piece of cut content? Hub worlds. 2 of them in fact. There were supposed to be 2 more hub worlds in Sonic 06, a desert hub world and a snow hub world, and again, the game suffers because of this. In Silver's story, you're in a desert finding Sonic, and with no transition, you're in Station Square now. But do you want to talk about abruptly placed transitions? Well then let's go back to the main game. Most of the time, stages and missions just end so abruptly and out of place. Most of the time there are transitions, but other times the game just pauses, cuts to black, and starts the loading screen. This was a product put out you had to pay for, people! Another thing you had to pay for is one of the most empty, lifeless hub worlds ever in a video game, and you can write in the comments and try and challenge me on that, but this is unacceptable. Look at this hub world. There's nothing here. No life, nothing to look at. There's not even trees. Nothing. It's just dull and shameful. Alright, almost over. Boss fights. Hit or miss. Okay, rival fights return yet again after being bad, better than bad, and okay. Well, first off, you only fight Silver, and Silver fights Sonic and Shadow, and that's it. No other rival fights besides that. But it doesn't help that when you fight Silver, you are in for the most broken and cheap boss fight you've ever played. If you don't know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, then you are okay. But if you don't, Silver will catch you over and over and over again. And if you happen to get hit up against the wall and have a ring, you will recollect it and be caught in a loop and cannot get out. The only way to fix it is to restart the boss fight. But you see, most video games alleviate this problem with immunity frames, but Silver doesn't give a crap about those. But the other bosses, like Egg Genesis, both Sonic and Silver have their own way to attack the bosses. But Sega forgot to disable Silver's hit point during Sonic's version, because you can use Silver's hit point with the bounce bracelet and break this boss fight in half. But don't take that as Silver's version being easy, because you'll be fighting the camera more than you fight that boss fight. But they both end the same way, and that is that... Oh no. Oh dear God. Oh no. Oh dear God, it's heading straight for us. No. 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 There's also Egg Cerberus, which can mess up your homing attack if he so pleases. There's Mephiles with a pretty cool visual gimmick, though the boss fight is cake. But then there's Elise. The boss fights with Silver are pretty alright, just throwing rocks at the thing, whatever. But the one with Sonic and Shadow is a slow, boring waiting game. Then there's Egg Wyvern, which I could go on for hours about Egg Wyvern, but I did a speedrun glitch and skipped it completely with the Sky Gem. Oh, that's right, the gems! I haven't talked about that yet. My mistake. So in the shop, there are these gems you can buy that give you an ability. Gonna say this now, don't worry about any other gem, just get the Sky Gem and the Purple Gem. Why those two, you may ask? Well, let's start with the Sky Gem. The Sky Gem can be thrown, and wherever it lands will launch Sonic where it was thrown, causing you to completely clip through doors early. Or in the Egg Wyvern boss fight, throw it as you're about to homing attack onto the boss, and then sit back and watch the fireworks as much as you can. Now for the Purple Gem. Why would you want it? Nobody likes the color purple because it gives you an infinite jump. You heard me correct, an infinite jump. And no, there is no time limit. There's supposed to be with a bar down there in the bottom right hand corner, but Sonic Team forgot to program the rest of this game. What, do you want them to program a bar to go down? That's hilarious. Skip sections of levels, go out of bounds. There's no limit to this thing. This is just incredible. Well, that's a good enough segue for me. It's time to finally discuss glitches. The by far most infamous thing about this game. I've discussed a few already because I basically had to, but believe me, there's more. So we're going to start with on-purpose exploits you can use with ease to speedrun the game. And in complete fairness, there are glitches in other Sonic games used to speedrun, but the thing is with Sonic 06, literally anything can happen, because Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are actual stable video games to some extent. Well, more so in SA2's case, SA1 hasn't aged the best. But anyway, so the speedrun glitches in those games feel more specific. But in this game, nah. Some of these exploits and glitches even I am able to do with relative ease, and I have no experience in speedrunning at all. Such as, I mentioned earlier that you can use the Sky Gem to clip through doors early. But what if I told you there is an easy way to do it? With Shadow, if you line yourself up at the corner of a door, jump and pause the game immediately, then you will just homing attack through the door. You can skip 2 route sections out of 4 with this. Yes, you heard me right. Rouge has 4 sections in Shadow Story, and you can skip 2 of them with this simple exploit. And as a bonus, die in his hovercraft, then turn the camera around without moving, and there will be 2 shadows with the exact same animations. But let's say you like Rouge. For multiple reasons, of course, I don't judge. What if you disagree with me and you still remain unconvinced and hate Silver? You can skip his section and way more by just doing the exploit on this door, and you skip like half the stage. Not even joking. What about that one desert ball level I briefly mentioned before? Use a box to clip through the top of the door and completely skip it. I don't remember anything for Sonic, though I know there is, but the Purple Gem is more than enough, honestly. Like how you can use it to skip another Silver section in Kingdom Valley? Kinda like that. Okay, but now time for the glitches that aren't fun. If you use Shadow's stupid form, Chaos form, if you have the Chaos Snap ability equipped in homing attack or rail, you'll fall through the world like nothing with no effort. Speaking of breaking out of the world, technically I did this glitch on purpose to showcase this for the video, but this could definitely happen to someone on purpose, so I'll let this one count. If you get in just the right spot and Silver catches and throws you back, he'll knock you out of bounds, and if you go back to him after this, the bounds don't reactivate, so if you go for a homing attack, Silver will throw you into outer space. Do a wall jump and not even be on the wall. Fight Egg Cerberus and have your homing attack flee all the way over to where you're not supposed to be. Hit, check, point multiple times. Both me and AI controlled characters would phase for just standing on the edge of a sidewalk. What the fuck? And that was a relatively stable playthrough, especially because I played the game many times before and I know how to avoid these glitches, and it's just become secondhand knowledge for me. God, can't anything in this game be remotely consistent? Alright, finally time for the last episode. Wait, hold on. What? Wait, what? This game had paid DLC? Sonic 06 had paid DLC. They expected you to pay more for more content in Sonic 06. And this came out months later, by the way. This wasn't a thing they just threw out like a week later. No, this was months later. But I'm sure it's not all that bad. A boss rush mode? They made you pay for a boss rush mode? Okay, well, I only paid for 2 DLCs just for a nice sampling. Sonic Very Hard Mode and Team Attack Amigo. Those were the only ones I'm buying. So I'm going to be extra hard on these DLCs since you had to pay extra for the Christ. There isn't even a space between Team Attack and Amigo. Well, other than that, the DLC borrowing a few sections just takes some of the main game and makes it playable with Tails, Blaze, and Omega. That's it. Best money well spent. Though, quick advice here, when you're homing attack these balls as Blaze, tap the X button. Don't spam it or else it'll cancel and you'll fall over and over and over again. What about Sonic Very Hard Mode? Well, it exceeded my expectations a little bit because I thought it was just going to be the stages with some more enemies or whatnot, but they actually changed a few levels themselves. Wave Ocean, you play backwards. Dusty Desert, you play without Elise. Flame Core, you play in a different order. But the rest are just some things change around a bit, so very lazy. But good they actually fixed things up and didn't pathetically make things worse. Also, the frame rate dips way more in this DLC too. The game is having more difficulty with this mode than I am actually beating it. Well, that's the end of my curiosity. Alright, now it's time for finally the last episode. So after Sonic saves Elise, Mephiles harnesses the power of one of the Chaos Emeralds, kills Sonic, making Elise cry. Just put it on screen here. So after Elise reacts, she releases Iblis, and Mephiles reunites with Iblis, creating Solaris. So everyone we played as in the story, and Eggman and Elise, get transported into a time vortex, I think that's what this is, and are faced with Solaris, which they cannot defeat because he is a being of time, so they'll still coexist in the present, past, and future. So they go after the Chaos Emerald, still out and about to revive Sonic. So starts the final stage, End of the World, where you'll play as all of the characters, going back to previous areas as a reprise under a world getting sucked into a black hole kind of vibe. Now, this finale, I'm not gonna lie, is absolutely epic, but the problem is, it's the finale to Sonic 06. So what if it has an epic finale? So did Food Fight.
Food! Fight!
Oh, we're doing this again? Confetti saved up.
So we make it through the End of the World, and then we resurrect Sonic by Elise. Just put it up on screen again. And then our 3 Hedgehogs transform into Super Sonic, Super Shadow, and Super Silver, then head up to the final boss. But the question is, how is the final boss? Looks like a fucking tree troll. I mean, well, you have 3 abilities with each character. Sonic, you can charge up a boost. Shadow, you can charge up a Chaos Spear. And Silver, you can throw rocks at him. Though, the problem is that if you try to gather up a whole bunch of rocks, they'll just collide with each other and explode. So, only use Silver when needed. When will he be needed, you ask? Because Sonic, Shadow, and Silver have a ring limit, so you need to constantly switch between them so they can build up rings. A really cool, intense mechanic. So this boss fight sounds pretty cool, right? Other than Silver. Well, here's another thing, where if you don't know what you're doing, you'll be sent into annoyance. For some reason, with no warning or explanation, you need to use all of the characters during the first phase to break Solaris' armor, and they give them to you backwards, because you need to use Silver first, then Shadow, then Sonic. So if you didn't know that, then you just spent a long time on this boss and got nothing done. Great mechanic there. But once phase 1 is done, phase 2 might just save this boss fight. And not only because you can freely use any character you want, so it feels more useful with your time, but the music. Oh, the music.
Is it over? No, it's not over yet. Let's have some fun, Solaris! A super-dimensional being. This might even be a fair fight. The root of all our problems. I will defeat you, Solaris! The present day, the here and now that you've stolen, time to take it back! I'll release you from the chains of your past.
Now, it is fun to go fast in this game.
I will protect the future!
This franchise through thick and thin.
Sonic, I believe in you! Don't let it beat you, Sonic!
You can do it, Shadow!
Don't hold back! Let him have it, Silver!
So Sonic, Shadow, and Silver stop Solaris and save the world, finally ending the hell that is Sonic 06. It's been a long ride reviewing this game, and it felt like it took years off my life, and I'm gonna be honest, I hated every second of it. I want you to know that I love Sonic the Hedgehog with a passion. So going back to this game after so long and witnessing everything this game had to offer made me feel so bad for not only Sonic Team, but this franchise as a whole. The game should not have turned out this way. It shouldn't have. It should have been a great game, because let me tell you, when the game doesn't glitch or physics don't make me mad, I can stop for a second and take in what positives are in this game. And all I see is a game with missed potential. And what hurts most is that, without comparing it to any Sonic games I'm about to review next, we've never got a replacement for this game. Why do you think Sonic fans today try to say this is a good game now? Because it has so many things this franchise just lacks now. Not to say I miss all of Sonic 06. Seriously, Elise can go die in hell for all I care. But everything else, I miss it all. I miss the ambition. I miss the cheesy story. I miss the characters I know and love. But I should save all that for a later nitpick. For now, what do I think of Sonic 06 as a game? It's an unfinished, buggy, unplayable mess. But when it's not that, I can fill in the blanks of what this game was supposed to be. And it makes me sad when something happens and I get taken right back to reality. I don't want this game to get remade. I don't. Leave that to Project 06. Let them handle that as a fan project. But I want a game like this again. What this game was supposed to be, I mean. Because I know this game would have accomplished great things, but it didn't, and that sucks. I hate to end this nitpick on a downer, but I gotta be honest here. I can't recommend Sonic 06 to you. Not in a million years. Not unless you're ready to deal with tons of disappointment and frustration. I can't even recommend this to you in a so bad it's good way because of how much of a letdown it is, and there being no real replacement for it. If we ever do get that in the future, then sure, it'll be great to look back on. But for now, it serves as a constant reminder where this franchise is right now in the present day. And I'll talk about it further in the future, but for now, goodbye Sonic 06. At least, I hope I can truly say that one day.
Well, that ended on a downer. I don't like downers. I didn't come to YouTube to make content just to be a downer all the time. I need something to pick me up. I need something to tease me for the next video, because now I just feel sad.